Sorry, I got to make sure it goes live where it's supposed to. So. Okay, so we are in. So we're continuing kind of our just overview of um, the Old Testament and the New Testament. So we're at Song of Solomon. I will mention that the book that we've kind of been using through this, it goes Song of Songs, and that's often what it's called, also known as Song of Solomon, is by far the most debated book in the Bible. First, for who the author is and how you should view the book. And then it literally says this, to why it's even included in the first place. Like there is a discussion of, well, why is this book even here? And so we're going to kind of look at this on that front, and I'm going to try to help you understand that. And you guys can make that decision for yourself. You may feel like we shouldn't look at it, but I want to make sure that we see portion of evidence that the author is Solomon. There are some that disagree. Probably is written quite a bit earlier than Ecclesiastes was, near the beginning of his reign. A lot of the people that believe that Solomon wrote it think that maybe this is him writing about his first wife. Now, remember, he had like 300. So, this is one of those fun elements to that. But this gives the reason, as Solomon wrote, to show the importance of a holy marriage and how a romantic relationship was to unfold. I don't know that I totally agree with that. I think there's another more important point in all of that. The key verse here is Song of Songs, chapter 8, verses 6 and 7. It says, set me as a seal upon your heart, as a seal upon your arm, for love is strong as death. Jealousy is fierce as the grave. Its flashes are flashes of fire, the very flame of the Lord. Many waters cannot quench love, neither can floods drown it. If a man offered for love all the wealth of his house, he would be utterly despised. Song of Songs, chapter 8, verses 6 and 7. So there are a couple of sections in here, and I'll give it. Chapter 1 and chapter 2 through verse 7 is the praising of physical attributes. By the way, these are fun because they would not work today. And we'll talk a little bit about it. 2:8 through 3:5 is a growing of their relationship and becoming more intimate. Then 3:6 through 5:1 is the procession and marriage. 5:2 through 6:9 is missing her husband. 6:10 through 8:4 is romance. And then the last part of chapter 8 is what the future holds. I will tell you that there is a strong discussion here that it is not going through their relationship in chronological order, because there is some evidence, if it's all chronological, that they consummated before they were married. So I just want to say it that way. You can see that as you want to. But the thing I kind of want to bring up as we look at this, that there are three major ways. Hello. A couple minutes behind. You're all right. We're in Song of Solomon. There are three major ways to interpret Song of Solomon. The literal interpretation looks at this story as God's view of a holy marriage. I'm going to be honest, I think that's part of it. The allegorical interpretation, now let me explain what that means. That means that everything in it is a picture of something. So I'm trying to think of a good example from modern literature. But an allegory is one of those stories where you see the sun and it represents this, and the moon represents this, and the stars represent this. And so you're telling a story. This one may not make sense for our culture, but The Wizard of Oz is an allegory. The original book is an allegory. It was about a time in American history where gold had become so expensive that it was causing problems with the value of the dollar, and they were wanting to start to mint silver to drop the price of the dollar to make it worth more. And when you look at the story, you have the Golden Road. We always think of the ruby slippers, but in the book they were made of silver. The Wizard of Oz, the guy who was on top of the movement to mint silver, was a guy whose last name was Oz. And so it's a satirical story, but it's also an allegory of what was going on. When you watch the movie, you think it's during the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl. It actually takes place in the late 1800s. And the reason you have the Wicked Witch of the West and the Wicked Witch of the East is the Wicked Witch of the West was the weather, and the Wicked Witch of the East was all those politicians in D.C. And that's the way the book was actually made. Well, it was a flop, and then it got picked up as a children's book and became this super popular thing. And then, of course, the movie, and being the first movie to have color.
Right.
So anyway. So that's an allegory, what they call the typical interpretation. And this is a discussion of a term that we sometimes see in Scripture. And I kind of want to explain. It's a discussion of there being what is called a type, which is a picture that shows part of the traits of something else. So the best explanation I can give you is that the Passover lamb during the Exodus, while it is a real event, it is also a type. You killed the Passover lamb, you put its blood over the top of your door and on the sides of your door, and then the angel of death passes over. That's the type. So it's an image of something that's coming later. The antitype, that's the term, is the real thing. Well, that's Jesus through his death and the placing of his blood on our heart, we escape the punishment of sin, which is death. Okay, so those are the three major interpretations. This, of course, mentions the fact that many people have a problem with this book because of their sexual content, and there is. Okay, so it is. I think it's funny because this actually brings up something that is important. There is a tendency among believers to see sexual relations as something dirty because our culture has made it that. Well, Song of Solomon is talking about in the perfect realm of God's purpose, it's not that. And so that's part of this discussion. Okay. So let's look at the book. I want to kind of give you this because it comes up to something. The book starts with a conversation from her. Okay, if you'll look, you'll see that there are several titles here, and the first title is she, so it's the woman. Well, let him kiss me with the kisses of his mouth, for your love is better than wine. Your anointing oils are fragrant. So she's smitten with him, is really the best way to explain it. Okay, and then we have this movement of others. So it's the people who are watching this. Okay. Then she begins to talk about herself. I am dark but lovely, And then Solomon comes in, and finally in verse 8, he comes, and notice how he speaks of her. If you do not know, O most beautiful among women. Okay, I compare you, my love, to a mare among Pharaoh's chariots. Your cheeks are lovely with ornaments. Your neck is with a string of pearls. Okay, then once again, we have the others speak again. Then going all the way down to 15, here is where I kind of want to start looking at this discussion. It says, behold, you are beautiful, my love. Behold, you are beautiful. Your eyes are doves. Okay. So there is a discussion here about that actually fits into the discussion of the marriage vows. Okay. Whenever you make your vows in a wedding, one of the things that you'll hear is love, honor, And then at one point comes the word cherish. Okay. So let me ask the question, what does that word mean?
Cherish, love.
Okay.
Take care of each other, like you want to cherish your partner.
Okay. Adore. Okay. So this is part of this discussion. So when we look at 1 Corinthians chapter 13, we see a very vivid demonstration of what it looks like to love. Love is patient, love is kind, love does not seek, okay? And we're called to love our spouse. Song of Solomon speaks of this term, to cherish them, to treat them as though they are incredibly valuable to you, to adore. So now notice, you are beautiful. I'm stunned by your beauty. Okay, and then she responds, behold, you are beautiful, my beloved, truly delightful. Then in chapter 2, at the beginning, we'll have to take a moment here. It says, I am a rose of Sharon, a lily of the valleys. This is her talking. Okay, now this brings up something from our hymnology. There is a song that we sing occasionally, and I'm not saying in the song, who's the lily of the valley? That is not biblical. She says, I'm the lily of the valley. It's a common flower. It's nothing special. I'm just a lily of the valley. I'm not a special flower. I'm just kind of common. So whenever we use, and we use, he's the lily of the valley, the bright. In that case, that particular statement is not actually biblically speaking of Jesus. It's biblically speaking of us, that we're just common. But notice how he responds. And this is the important part to discuss in this concept of cherishing. But you're like a lily among the thorns. You may think you're just a common flower, but you're like a flower among the thorns. Okay, let me use this one because I think it's an interesting discussion. And of course, it's something that me and Michelle dealt with when we first moved here. Michelle lived in Texas, and the state flower in Texas is the bluebonnet, and these beautiful blue flowers, and they're so pretty. And when she moved to New Mexico, she goes, I don't get it. Your state flower is the yucca. It's in the name. Yuck. Okay.
Never thought of that.
So normally, what does a yucca look like? It's if you drive out by the fields, maybe not right now, but 3 weeks ago, if you drove by the fields, what do the yuccas look like? They are gorgeous.
You couldn't see them today for all the weeds. I know.
But understand that when the rain comes, they produce these beautiful white flowers. So we're driving home one day. It had rained a bit. We're driving home one day after we had moved here, and she goes, what are those plants with the really pretty white flowers? I said, that's a yucca. She goes, no. Yeah. But to connect it to this, watch. I'm just a yucca plant. Oh no, you're a yucca plant in full bloom. I know you think you're plain, but I don't think you're plain. You are like a flower in the midst of a bunch of mesquite. You are beautiful. And then she responds, as an apple tree among the trees of the forest, so is my beloved. So notice just a bunch of trees in the forest, then you come upon an apple tree with all these ripe apples. Well, you're suddenly, yay, I found an apple tree. Well, that's what my beloved is like compared to all the other guys. So they're comparing. And in that comparison, they're saying, you're more valuable than they. Okay. And it discusses, that your love is what sustains me. It sounds mushy, but what is it? It's them cherishing one another.
That makes me sad.
It's them expressing value to one another. Okay. Even the titling that the English Standard gives it, the bride adores her beloved. It's adoration. It's thinking they're special. Okay. And we see these words of ownership in verse 16. My beloved is mine, and I am his. I sought him, the beginning of chapter 3, I sought him whom my soul loves. I sought him. So we see this picture. Okay. Then we see there, we come back to this, and I'm going to get into chapter 4 for a second, because you're about to session of what they beautiful when this was written. Okay, here we go. Behold, you are beautiful, my love. Behold, you are beautiful. Your eyes are doves behind your veil. Okay, your hair is like a flock of goats leaping down the slopes of Gilead. Your teeth are like a flock of shorn ewes that have just come up from the washing, all of which bear twins. So literally he's saying, your teeth are white like freshly shorn sheep, and you're not missing any of them. And not one among them has lost its young. Your lips are like a scarlet thread, and your mouth is lovely. Your cheeks are like halves of a pomegranate behind your veil, so they're rosy, they're colored. Your neck is like the Tower of David, so you got a strong neck. Built in rows of stone. On it hang 1,000 shields, all of them shields of warriors. Then he goes on. Your two breasts are like two fawns, twins of a gazelle that graze among the lilies. Until the day breeze and the shadows flee, I will go away to the mountains. You are altogether beautiful, my love. There is no flaw in you. Now, it's always dangerous to look up Song of Solomon, but there's a meme they did that shows a literal description of his and like her neck is like a stone wall. And she's got doves on her. I mean, like, it sounds really, really weird. But he is using analogies to explain how beautiful she is to him. And while we may not understand it, it is a discussion of his adoration of her. Verse 9 gives us this. It says, you have captivated my heart, my sister, my bride. You have captivated my heart with one glance of your eyes, with one jewel of your necklace. He's completely smitten with her. Okay. Then we have this moment in the garden, and them intimacy between them. It goes through all of this, and the bride then comes and praises him. So we have a reverse. My beloved is radiant and ruddy, distinguished among 10,000. His head is the finest gold. His locks are wavy, black as a raven. His eyes are like doves behind streams of water, bathed in milk, sitting beside a full pool. His cheeks are like beds of spices, mounds of sweet-smelling herbs. His lips are lilies, dripping liquid myrrh. His arms are rods of gold set with jewels. So she sees him in much the same way he sees her, of how impressive he is and how much she values him. Okay. So that is one of the major elements of this when you look at it from the just straight literal discussion, is that they both adore one another. Now, this does bring up the question that if he was so in love with her, then why does he have 300 more wives? But it does give us a picture of what it looks like to adore the one God has given you. Okay. Now, we go on, we see much more of this. I'm not going to read through all of it. I mean, it really is, how beautiful are you? How, all of these things. He goes through and gives almost the same description he gave in chapter 4 and chapter 7. In chapter 8, she longs for her. Okay. There's so much. Okay. Now, let's get into the other discussions. One of the primary ones, and I don't know that I would call it I'm less likely to say it's an allegory as it is a picture. Okay. The Jews saw this as a picture of God's relationship with the nation of Israel. Okay. Now, let's make sure we understand why we say that. Because over and over and over again, God would speak of the nation of Israel as his bride, as his wife. You are my people, and I will be your God. This relationship that was like a marital relationship. And God would tell them, and there are other places where God does say, I came and I made you my wife, and I loved you and I cherished you, but yet you weren't willing to be faithful. Okay, that is a major discussion in the prophets. We'll see this as we go forward. But so there is a level at which, even if no matter what, this is also true, that God is showing them what his love for them looks like and what their love for him should look like. Okay, that is an Old Testament reality of this book, is this idea of God and the church and the fact that God cherished his people and loved them and took care of them and all of these things. And what does it do? It really, in a way, makes it feel much worse that they were unfaithful. Because it's not like God didn't care. God pursued them, and yet they still went, no, I'm not interested. Okay. When we move into the New Testament, the same analogy comes forward because we see the same thing. We see Jesus describe the church as his betrothed, we are the bride of Christ. Well, when you look at this book talking about him seeing his bride as beautiful and her seeing him as beautiful and valuable and all these things, it is a picture of what our relationship with Jesus ought to be. That we ought to look to Jesus and go, oh my gosh, I'm so impressed. And it also tells us that even in the midst of all of our stuff, he loves us and cherishes us. Even when we don't deserve it. Now, let me dig just a bit to kind of play into this, because remember, when we look at this, there's some that go, I don't know. But Hosea goes through the same analogy. What does God tell Hosea to do? To go find a wife. And by the way, let's make sure we get into all of it. Go find a wife who's a prostitute. And he loved her. and he took care of her, and they had a child together named Jezreel. And then from that point on, there are 2 more children born, but they don't say they're Hosea's. It says, and she bore a son, but it doesn't say she bore me a son. And the names of the 2 people were No Mercy and Not My People. So probably not his kids. So she leaves. And there's a little bit of discussion about how God is frustrated with the nation of Israel for running away and for not following him. And then suddenly God comes back to Hosea, now go get her. And he goes and finds her and he buys her out of slavery and remarries her. And as he remarries her, goes, now you're not going to run away anymore, are you? I'm going to be your husband. You're going to be my bride. I'm going to be your God. You're going to be my people from this point forward. And the beauty of Hosea is at the end of the book, we see this moment where God goes, that those 2 kids that were called Not My People and No Mercy, they will be called Mercy and they will be called my people. I will bring them back and make them mine. Well, that's part of what this story is. It's a picture of how much God loves and pursues us. Because that may be the best explanation when I say cherish. Cherish is the act of pursuing one another. It is the act of showing pursuit and showing value. And so when we look at this story, like I said at the beginning, there are places where there are people that go, oh, I don't even think that should be in the Bible. I don't think we should read it. I don't think we should touch it because, man, it's just, I don't get it. I don't know why this is here. And you may feel that way, and that's okay. But I would tell you that there are 3 reasons. Number 1, it shows us a picture of intimacy between a husband and a wife. And it shows us a picture of intimacy between God and his people. And in a very real way, it shows what our intimacy with Jesus ought to look like. Because in John 15, what does it tell us? If you abide in me, if you dwell close, this is a picture of dwelling close. I can't wait to see him. I can't wait to be around him. I can't wait to spend time with him. I just can't wait. And so it's important for us to understand that this is a real element of our life in Christ. And also a real element in our lives, in our married lives. That we need to show how much our spouse is valuable. And watch this. I'm going to do this. It's 5:59 and we're done. We finished early.
You said it was okay.
I know, but usually it doesn't happen.